Okay, quick interruption. If you're a founder who keeps saying, I need to figure out AI, but you're still the editor, the approver, the bottleneck, this is for you. You don't need another tutorial. You need 2 days to actually build. That's the AI in Action Conference, March 19th and 20th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's not theory, it's implementation. Real systems, real workflows, real delegation for you and your business. I'll be there speaking, teaching you how to architect your voice so your team and AI can finally sound like you without rewriting everything. Early bird pricing won't last, so pause right now and use my link, hellodon.live/action 2026 and get in the room. In this episode, you'll discover why taking CEO advice from people whose small team is 200 people is making your business harder to run, not easier. Hey, you're listening to She's That Founder, the podcast for ambitious female leaders who are ready to stop being the bottleneck in their business using AI frameworks for faster delegation and decision-making. I'm Dawn Andrews, and today you'll discover why the leadership advice you've been following was never designed for your stage of business, what actually creates freedom at $500K to $5 million in revenue, and I promise you it is not more structure. And the one reframe that will replace what I'm calling fake corporate energy with something that actually works, real leadership clarity. So stay with me because this one is going to change how you see your entire business. Before we get into it, I got something to say because it's March and I refuse to let Women's History Month go by without acknowledging it. And I know that Women's History Month can feel like a hallmark moment, the kind of thing that companies put in their Instagram captions and then go right back to business as usual. That is not what this is for me. Women's History Month is personal because every single woman in history who built something, led something, changed something, she did it without the playbook, without permission, often without funding, support, or the seat at the table that she deserved. And she figured it out anyway. And here we are. We're running businesses, we're building teams, we're trying to figure out how to lead in a way that's actually our own. And that is not a small thing. That is history in motion. And the most important thing about that, we get to build it our own way, not through someone else's blueprint. So this whole episode, this conversation about leading at your stage, on your terms, without copying a system that was never built for you, I want you to hear this episode through that lens. You're not behind, you're not doing it wrong. You are a woman building something real, and I'm so proud of you. Okay, let's talk about why that matters more than you think. I want you to picture this. It's 4:47 on a Tuesday. You had a strategy call on the calendar. Instead, you answered 11 Slack messages, 3 of which started with a quick question, which as we all know is never quick. Revenue is up, you got a team, things are moving, and yet the business feels heavier than it did when it was just you. You're in more decisions than ever because of your growth. You're the last stop on every approval. Every day, there are quick questions that eat your afternoon alive. And so you do what every founder does. You go looking for answers. You read the books, you watch masterclasses, you listen to podcasts, hopefully this one, and you start building systems that look like the ones the big operators talk about, or the ones that you came out of before you started your business. Org charts, approval workflows, weekly all hands, documented SOPs for everything. And somehow, the business gets more dependent on you, not less. Here's what's actually happening. The advice isn't wrong, it's just not yours. It was built for a different stage in business, or a different team size, or a different leadership reality than the one you're standing in right now. And today, we are busting 3 myths that are keeping founders stuck. And I'm giving you the reframe for each one. Let's go. Myth number 1. You need more structure to scale. I mean, it's common sense, really, right? The myth comes from every scaling podcast, every business book, every consultant who spent time inside a corporate environment before pivoting to work with founders. Like I myself have given this advice and or believe this advice. And the message is consistent that chaos is your enemy. So build the org chart, create the SOPs, define the reporting lines, get structured, and listen. When your business is breaking down, structure absolutely looks like the fix because things are probably falling through cracks. People don't know who owns what. You as the founder, maybe you're firefighting every day. And of course, you think you need more process. The diagnosis makes total sense, but this is what gets interesting. I work with a president at a $300 million fashion brand, and they did it right. This is not a scrappy startup. This is a real business with serious revenue and significant team. And this founder put together a thorough, detailed strategy and tactics document for her people to work from. She documented the process, she built the system. 3 years later, the team is still overwhelmed by this process. They still don't have the hang of it. The documents take enormous energy to maintain and improve each cycle, and the founder is not even confident that her people are actually following this process once the planning is done. 3 years, a $300 million business, and the process did not free the founder's time. It just gave them something new to manage. And here's why. The problem wasn't a lack of structure. The problem was a lack of transferred judgment. So I just want to say that again, transferred judgment. So the founder's team didn't need more processes to follow. They needed to understand the founder's way of thinking well enough to make calls without them. And an org chart doesn't necessarily give them that. A multi-step SOP doesn't give them that. But the founder's decision-making logic, made explicit and teachable, does give them that. So here's your reframe. Stop asking, what processes do we need? Or at least pause it, because look, every business needs process. But start asking, what judgment do I need to transfer? Especially if you feel like you've been building systems and processes and you're hung up. Like, this is what's underneath the hang up. And here's an AI move that'll help. Take your last 10 decisions, the ones you made this week alone, paste them into your AI tool, and ask it to help you extract the criteria you used to make each of those decisions. What were your standards? What were your non-negotiables? What was the logic? That extraction process is the beginning of a decision framework your team can actually use without you in the room. So structure organizes tasks, transferred judgment along with that structure scales you. So structure and transferred judgment are not the same thing, but together they're the pathway to scale. Here's a second myth that steals the heart and soul of founders in smaller companies. If it works for a $100 million company, it'll work for mine. And I feel like this one is sneaky because it feels like ambition. A founder that's chasing this myth may study someone's team structure, or she reads how Sarah Blakely built Spanx, or she listens to how the big operators talk about management, delegation, leadership development. And then she goes back to her 7-person team full of inspiration and tries to apply that same playbook. And I get it. She's modeling women who have scaled. They figured it out. So why wouldn't you reverse engineer what they built? Here's why. Those systems were built after the business was already running well, while the founder was still figuring out her own role and the business was going through massive changes. There is a big difference between documenting systems that already work and trying to import infrastructure into a business that's still forming around you, and especially if the infrastructure is from a fully formed business. And here's the honest truth about why we do this anyway. It feels like legitimacy. Finally, an org chart, like enough people in the business that we have an org chart. Or finally, a real meeting structure. Finally, we look and feel like the CEO we always imagined we would be. But legitimacy isn't a structure, it's a result. And you can't borrow it from someone who is 3, 4, 10 stages ahead of you in their business journey. And I see this most with OKRs. And listen, I am not here to bash OKRs. In the right business at the right stage, they are so powerful. But I've watched founders spend months implementing an OKR framework with their 5-person team that couldn't connect to their actual daily work. Every quarter became a documentation exercise that nobody believed in. The OKRs lived in a spreadsheet, the work happened somewhere else, and usually the founder ended up managing the framework on top of managing the business. So they made more work for themselves. That's what I mean by fake corporate energy. It looks exactly like scaling while performing exactly like drag. It slows everything down. And a $100 million structure assumes you have full leadership layers. Managers managing managers, defined swim lanes, dedicated operations, HR, finance, strategy, all running in parallel. You have a team where half the people probably report directly to you and also text you on weekends. But this is the reframe. Business stage aware leadership means asking, what does leading look like at this revenue stage with this team at this moment in time? And the honest answer at 500K to 5 million in revenue is almost always fewer layers, more clarity, and a founder who has deliberately redesigned her own role, not replicated someone else's. She has created her own role related to her specific business at this stage. And you are not behind because you don't look like a $100 million company. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. The question is whether you're leading there or somewhere you haven't actually arrived at yet. Hey, quick pause before myth number 3, because if this episode is resonating, I want you to know there's a next step available to you right now. If your business feels heavy, if you're in too many decisions, too many approvals, too many quick questions, and you already know that more structure hasn't fixed it, CEO Clarity Consulting is where we rebuild your decision architecture, your ownership structure, and your time model so that the business runs without your constant involvement. This is private, one-on-one work. It's for founders who are done waiting for it to get easier on its own and are ready to actually redesign how the business works around them. One specific result: most founders stop fielding the team questions that don't belong to them within the first 30 days. If that's you, book your CEO Clarity call now. The link's in the show notes. Now, myth number 3. This is the last one. And this might be the most dangerous myth of the 3 because it's the closest to true. Myth number 3, more systems equal more freedom. Build enough systems and you can step back. Automate enough and you don't need to do it. You can reduce your team even. That's the promise. Automate enough, document enough, delegate enough, and the business runs itself. Systems do create leverage. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that they don't matter because that's what a lot of my podcast episodes are about. So systems absolutely do matter. The problem is where founders focus their system building energy. Most founders build systems around tasks: how to onboard a client, how to send a proposal, how to run a project debrief. They document the doing really well, and then they wait for the freedom to show up. And sometimes it does, but a lot of the times it doesn't. And this is like the 201, 301 level of this class, y'all. I'll tell you why it doesn't show up. I have a client, a legal firm founder, sharp operator, strong team. She had systems for everything. Her general counsel handled client relationships. Processes were documented. Things ran pretty well. And then a key client had a serious problem while the GC was on vacation. And here's the part that stings. The GC made herself unavailable. The client situation was escalating. It needed judgment, context, and relationship management. All the things that live in a leader's head, not in a process document. And the team froze, not because they were bad at their jobs, but because the systems told them what to do, not what to think. So everything reverted back to the founder, who had no context on the situation, who had to walk into a client crisis cold and clean up a mess she didn't create. She righted it, as she always does and always will, but she also started looking for a new GC because what that moment revealed wasn't a process failure, it was a judgment transfer failure. And look, I know some of you have bought the exact project management tool that the company in this case study used, but how's that going with the project management tool? I mean, great? I don't know. Here's the shift. The freedom doesn't come from task system, it comes from decision systems. When your team knows your standards, your actual non-negotiables, when this happens, we do this logic, your criteria for quality, for client communication, for when to escalate and when to handle it, then they stop running everything through you, not because you handed them a checklist, but because they genuinely understand how you think and why you decide like you decide. That is what CEO clarity looks like. Not an org chart, not a project management tool. That is your judgment transferred. And you can use AI tools to accelerate this, like we talked about earlier. Feed it examples of real situations you've navigated and ask it to help you extract your decision logic. This makes your thinking visible, teachable, and scalable without you having to be in the room every time. All right, you discovered how to handle 3 myths, and I gave you 3 reframes. Myth 1, you need more structure to scale. The truth, you need to transfer your judgment, not just your tasks. Myth number 2, if it works for a $100 million company, it'll work for yours. The truth, you can't borrow legitimacy and structures from someone 3 to 5 stages ahead of you in business. Lead and build from where you are. And myth number 3, more systems equal more freedom. The truth is, task systems organize your team's doing. Decision systems scale your thinking, and only one of those, in combination with the other, truly sets you free. Here's your action step. Pick one myth that you've been living by, just one of them, and take one action based on the reframe. If it's myth one, do the decision criteria exercise with your AI tool. If it's myth two, look at one piece of infrastructure you built and honestly ask, did I borrow this from somebody at another stage of business, or does it fit my business at this actual stage? And if it's myth three, find one recurring question your team brings you and decide what you'd need to teach them so it never has to come to you again and that you can hand it off with confidence. One myth, one reframe, one action. That's it. Thanks for spending this time with me today. The fact that you're here doing this work, thinking this carefully about how you lead, that's not small. That is the whole enchilada. Come join me for my next episode. And until then, sit with this. The most expensive thing in your business right now isn't your overhead, your tools, or your team. It's the decisions that are still living only in your head. Go lead well, lovey. I'll talk to you soon.